So renewable energy encompasses a lot of technologies that people have started to think about in terms of triple wins. Potentially they can serve adaptation goals, mitigation goals and development goals all at once. A lot of people have some hope for solar technology since Kenya's base in hydropower might be vulnerable to reducing rainfall over time as climate change starts to have increasingly visible impacts. Solar power is obviously low carbon, so it can have mitigation effects and potentially can serve people at household level. In Kenya we had an event where a lot of the small-scale promoters and entrepreneurs around solar energy came together to discuss our project in collaboration with another project that had looked at the development of solar energy at a very small scale from the early days in the 80s. We discussed with them the finding of our more national scale political economy analysis, which was to ask, for example, solar technology, why has it reached a certain level where it can input into energy policy at the national scale in some areas, but in some areas it's considered a low priority, or it's sidelined, or it's not on a par with natural gas and oil developments, or the government's interest in coal, or the international donors' interests in large-scale geothermal energy. Through that, we managed to start quite a useful conversation about where they had encountered their own frustrations with trying to build their smaller solar businesses within this broader political economy of energy in Kenya, which might have different priorities from their own. And these are the people who have been involved in the nitty-gritty of trying to get things done in Kenya. So they're the real repositories of that knowledge, some of that politics of where the real power might lie. It's important to be trying to understand who is representing the climate, who is representing the poor, and what narratives are they doing so with, and to look behind public prescriptions or statements of what people's intentions or motivations are, to realise that they are informed by some particular framing or worldview, or some people might say ideology, which is not necessarily recognised by people themselves when they're articulating their own preferences for particular energy solutions. Once power relations are identified, there is a choice to be made about whether you act with those power relations, because those are the ones that are likely to bring change in the short term, or whether it's a case of recognising where those power relations might be counterproductive to long-term change. Kenyan energy policy is ostensibly very geared towards providing all of the big hits, sustainable, long-term, affordable, for the poor, for industry. And we might understand that actually there might be some conflicts between those. Can we have energy policy that serves all of those goals simultaneously and effectively for all? Unlikely would be our political analysis of that. What's more important than trying to create this idea of consensus is to identify where conflict lies in that consensus, perhaps suggest that it's inherent in that system, and then just try and understand who some of the winners and losers are. Some of the difficulties of using a political economy framework are to decide which political economy that you're to do. There are a lot of different approaches to doing it. There's a lot of different ways that political economists and political scientists have sought to explain how states and markets work in different particular contexts, and it's difficult to know which to draw on and to what extent that should inform our work. Because political economy analysis can be done at a variety of scales, and sometimes you end up having to choose when we'd rather be doing research that was very holistic and informed by political economy at a number of scales. I think that to use a political economy approach can be really fruitful. I think the advice for people using it in a way that we have done before is to try and stay open to where people's motivations and incentives and interests might lie, and how they might confound your initial expectations.